Hi, everybody. Dr. Kathy again, part two of our orgasm neuronal training. Okay? All right, so this is going to be a good one. So let's get our body, mind ready to hear some interesting information. Okay? I want to first of all point out three important points. Number one, men and our partners need to be educated about the clitoris. We are still doing a bad job of telling the whole world about our new clitoris. Remember I showed you last time the picture of the huge clitoris? No one is pushing it enough for the world to know that we have a humongous, beautiful clitoris that is shaped in a completely different way than how we were brought up. So we need to do a better job informing and entertaining the world with this information, right? We've got to educate as many people as we can, including our men and women, because we ourselves don't even know. I'm sorry to say, it's both women and men. When you ask and do the survey, that's what studies show, we're not educating enough about the clitoris. So can I put that first on the list? We've got to do a better job of doing that. So we've got to get out, have an open discussion with people and say, hey, do you know what the clitoris looks like? Have you ever seen the clitoris? Boom, show it to them. Okay? Because if we don't, they are not going to make it a priority in terms of learning. And right now, we're not doing a good job. Despite the news coming out back in 1998, it was amazing. So we've got to know, y'all got to know about the new clitoris. That's the first point I want to make because that's one of the most sensitive, area in the woman and makes her have that orgasm when it is stimulated successfully, right? So that increases the chance for a lot of women, but it's not alone, okay? We have the other erogenous zones and we have the neuronal psyche pathway too that we're talking about today. But we've got to make it a number one priority to talk about the clitoris. Yes, I've said it so many times. I'm going to say it again, y'all. We've got to talk about the clitoris to the world that wants to hear, the part of the world that wants to hear. And if we can get people that want to hear, we're going to increase the percentage and the chances of being satisfied in the bedroom with your partner. And I'm saying for everybody, okay? Consenting adults, of course. That's the first point I want to make. The second point I want to make is, did you know that the orgasm, our orgasm, the woman's orgasm, is thought to be not important? A lot of studies show that we're still thinking, oh, the man's satisfaction is more important than the woman's satisfaction. And that is wrong. I need to say this again. We cannot be telling the world anymore, right? That was gender scripting that we have to throw away. No more telling the world that our pleasure, our satisfaction, right? Our orgasm is not important. And they actually say that it's complicated. And I know it's complicated, but it's complicated because we don't know what the clitoris looks like. Ta-da! We don't know what the clitoris even, we don't know how it works. We don't know our endogenous sexual zones. We don't know how the mind works. We're still way behind. So what am I here to do? I'm here to inform you that number two, second point, is we have to stop saying that our orgasm is not important. We have to stop saying it to ourselves, and we have to stop anyone that tries to say that. Our orgasm is very important. Women, ladies, it's very important. Okay? And we have to stop saying it's complicated, because if we can learn what we're talking about on these past few months and weeks, I've been saying this for a long time, if we can get that into our skull and know that the orgasm is only complicated because we haven't paid attention to the pathways that are involved in the orgasm. And that's what we want to do. And we want to inform our partner about the importance of these pathways too, so they can be informed on how to help us get there. Okay? So that was the second thing I wanted to say. The third point I want to make is your sexual mind is completely different from your behavior. So I wanted you to know that because we're going to go into an area now. We're going to talk about fantasies. And your sexual mind, oh my goodness, it is vast. And each person's ability to create and to imagine is different. But remember, that is the orgasmic neuronal pathway that I want you to create. So when we talked about being in the moment, being mindful, being able to create those pathways, remember, create those pathways that will allow you to create your own orgasm if you're having difficulty. Again, these are for people that are having problems with orgasm. If you have the best orgasm in the world, you don't need me right now, you can check out, okay? This is for women and for men that want to improve their partner's orgasm, their own orgasm, by using some of these little newish information nuggets that you can actually use immediately tonight and induce a better chance of having that orgasm, okay? So the sexual mind is not your behavior. And I'm going to say it again. Anyone that's using their sexual mind and behaving on it is going to get into trouble and go to jail. So we don't want that, right? We need everyone to know that the sexual mind is a completely different beast. So what you do in the bedroom with your mind, what you do in the bedroom with your partner is between two consenting adults and they're being safe, right? What you do in public, at work, is devoid of any sexual connotation. Y'all know about the Me Too movement, stay away from all that. And that is where people get into trouble if they try to mix it. So do not let it blend or flow into your behavior. Okay, so your behavior should be professional and should be always non-sexual, especially in the work environment or in any environment where you're not in the bedroom with your partner. Okay, so those are three things I want you to note. We've got to educate our men. All right, y'all, we've got to do it, and we've got to do it gently, right? We've got to do it with kindness, and like I said, over some wine or some good cooked meal that you did, or some place where you are that's lovely, the beach, anywhere. The most important thing is you've got to talk about this, right? Always talk about your sexual needs and your desires, and always think of doing it in a nice, non-combative way, right? No arguments. Just be lovely, be kind, be smooth, and say, hey, babe, let's talk about sex. And then he might say, okay, what do you want to talk about? And then you throw it at him, what you've been thinking about for yourself. Now, again, this is all pre-orgasm, so this is way before in the bedroom. Don't do it in the bedroom, too late. You want to do it when you are in a casual, less stressful place, because in the bedroom it's too much tension. So I want you to take it out of the bedroom and have these discussions with your partner. And I'm going to say it again, they need to be educated. Educate your partner. And I'm saying stop not educating your partner. You guys are not willing to talk to your partner. And I know it's the stereotype. We were trained and brought up not to, but it's changed now. So in order to get your satisfaction and get the benefits of being satisfied, which of course is long life, a long, healthy, quality life full of happiness with your partner, right? You improve the relationship. You want to be open. Now, to be open, it can be a little bit scary. People always say, Dr. Kathy, how do I open up the conversation? And I always say, start with, hey, babe. I love the word babe. Or hey, love. Or hey, darling. Or hey, sweetheart. Anything that you think will engage him. And do it in a place where he's calm and he's comfortable and he's happy, right? Not when he's busy, when he is not busy. Okay, just say, babe, let's talk about something a little bit, right? And smile, okay? But your partner should be educated, all right? No more talk about your orgasm not being important. It is as important as his. We have to narrow the gender gap, narrow the gender orgasm gap. It's too big still, all right? And the third thing, please remember, your sexual mind is not your behavior. I'm going to sing that song. Your sexual mind is not your behavior. What you do sexually should not be something you do outside of the bedroom. All right? We should know that. All right. So I would like to move on to where I really want to land, which is we talked about how your mind sometimes can wander, and how you have to turn off the prefrontal cortex, all of that uh, d- e- um, executive actions that we do that keep us busy and keep us organized. We don't want that on in the bedroom. So I said you've got to either keep your mind working, thinking of something else, or stay focused, stay in the moment, look at your partner, look at his eyes, stay in the game with your partner when you are planning to be intimate. But I found a book, all right, and his name is Dr. O. Kontula. Dr. O. Osmo. I forget his name because he's from Finland. Dr. Osmo Kontula. Oh my goodness. He wrote a book called The Sexual Mind. When I say book, huge article. Amazing. You guys got to go get it. The Sexual Mind by Dr. O. Kontula. Osmo Kontula. Okay. And it's pretty recent, a few years ago. And I loved it. So some of the stuff I'm going to point out was from his article. So I want you to bear with me because I'm mixing a lot of articles too. So if you need this information, let me know. All right. So the first thing we're going to talk about is fantasies, okay, and desires, because that is really the crux of it. What is your fantasy? What is your desire? You're not thinking about it. You're suppressing it. You're not allowing it to come to the forefront. The men do, but we don't because we're taught, oh, that's not ladylike. Okay, times have changed. We now know that our orgasm is just as important as theirs. And in order to get that, we have to now step up to the plate and say, you know what? I'm thinking of this and I'm thinking of that. Now, again, how you say that is going to have to be in a nice way. But if you see my diagram, you'll see that we think about so many different things, and I'm saying sexually. And those things that we think about can actually start the process of the orgasm pathway that can be turned on, and then you get aroused. Okay? So I'm going to say this again. What we think about, yes, the fantasies are in here. So you know your fantasies. I know my fantasies. The guys know their fantasies. Do we talk about it in public? No. The sexual mind is not our behavior. You talk about it with your partner. How many people do that? How many people have spoken about their fantasies with their partner? Raise your hand. I know they're not that many because some of us are ashamed, right? But some of us are not. And the ones that are talking about their fantasies are having the best sexual experience of their life. You're not. Why? Because they didn't know. So we've got fantasies that we stuff up in our brain. You don't want to talk about them, so they just stay up there. They don't create the pathway. So part of being in the orgasm neuronal pathway to be able to turn on and turn off the desires and the arousal and why he's touching you and he's getting to those erogenous zones, a lot of that will determine where your brain is. So the question is, where's your brain? Are you thinking about something else, which we're not supposed to do, or are you thinking about the sexual encounter? So I said I'll bring in some pointers regarding fantasies because the fantasies that we have are several, right? So you've got to find out what yours is and bring it forward and bring it into the actual relationship. How do we do that? Again, discussion. You've got to say, hey, babe, hey, darling, hey, sweetheart, do you know that I have some fantasies? You make it about yourself. You can actually start with, hey, babe, do you have any fantasies? Or you might already know his fantasies, and it's your turn. So the question then is, have you done it? If you have, you're way ahead of the game. If you have not, we've got to do it. Why? It'll help your orgasm for those that are not having orgasms, right? So what is a fantasy, right? A fantasy is a sexually arousing experience that you and me, we have that makes us get aroused. Okay? So you have something in your mind and it says, oop, either your loins get hot or your body flushes and your mind starts to think more about sex and you have a smile. And that is a fantasy that you have not engaged in. Most of the time, you've not engaged in, meaning you've taken it to another level and it's a little bit more expanded because we're very creative. But it also can be something you've experienced already. So it really doesn't matter whether it's something that you created out of the blue, right? Just out of nothing, thin air, or something you've had before that you've expanded on it, you've made it a little bit more elaborate. It's still a fantasy in your head. It's like, oh my gosh, I wish I could do this, I wish I could do that. Again, it's something that you have experienced that arouses you and it's in the back of your mind. Something you did. And then when you remember it, it actually turns you on. Okay? So the fantasy can be a sexual experience that you've had in your memory. That is one type of fantasy. So just think of something that happened to you years ago, a year ago, a month ago, a week ago, when you were young, and think of the experience if it's powerful enough to arouse you while you're in the moment with your partner. Okay? That's again a fantasy that you can use to include and help you focus on the orgasmic pathway. All right, so we're trying to do part B, part two, where we're going to create those pathways. So one thing in your mind could be a memory, okay, of something that happened juicy, nice, years ago or recently. And you use that as a way of channeling your brain into creating that pathway. So that is number one for all y'all that are not having orgasms. This is juicy stuff now, so gold. So make sure you write this down. Number one, choose memories. Go back, think, what memory did you have? And use that as a way of staying in the moment, right? Staying focused on the sexual encounter with your partner. That's one way of creating that pathway, like I said. And then, like I said yesterday, go into the feeling, forcefully feel that feeling, imagine it being magnified, and just keep on just feeling it, and your body will react and create those pathways. Okay, so that's one way of starting the process by engaging your mind in a memory, a sexual memory from before. Another fantasy that you could be having up here, right, could be creating a fantasy with you seducing some stranger, right? So you could have a fantasy about a stranger, right? So you could be thinking about somebody that you've invented in your mind. That is being, again, creative in your mind. And that might turn you on. Again, each to their own. You got to know what your own fantasy is. I'm just giving you some examples. You might be the sort of person that likes to create people and just go for it, right? That is beautiful because it's going to keep your mind engaged, get all the chemicals and all the hormones going, right? The neurotransmitters, and next thing you know, it's going down here and you're on the way to create your path for your orgasm. And it's working and you'll know it because your mind is where it really starts, right? The second thing would be not only seducing a stranger, but the stranger seducing you, right? So it could be a stranger, it could be a partner, right? You can use your partner to seduce you. This all could be your imagination. Now, this is happening in your mind, right? So again, creating these memories, seducing your partner or a stranger, right? In your mind. You've got to go with what you've got going, right? This is something that you have to know whether it works or not for you. I'm just giving some examples. Or seducing an influential person, someone that is powerful, right? Imagined, right? Or them seducing you. So it can go either way. Them seduce you or you seduce them. Again, depends again what is going to work and stimulate and arouse you and form that pathway. So I want you to figure out what turns you on, what thoughts, and go into that zone, like we talked about yesterday, and magnify it with your partner. Okay? Now, before I go into more examples, I really want to back up and talk about the partner, because I know that, yeah, you're thinking, does the partner know about your fantasy? And sometimes they don't, right? Especially if it's just a casual sex. No, then why should they know about your fantasies? Whatever you're doing in your mind is your business. But I want to point out that there are certain criteria that we have that we look for in men to decide whether this is the sort of man that we're going to tell about all this stuff, right? So it's somebody that it's somebody you want to share with, maybe like, pair bonding, a life partner that you want to share this with, not just anybody, right? That's just my opinion. If you want to, go for it, if it works for you, but make sure that this is in a safe place, and that the person that's going to be informed is not going to do anything, that should not be done to you. Make sure you're doing it, giving it to an appropriate person. But I want to give you some criteria before I go back to fantasies, because again, do you tell the man about, or the woman about your fantasy? Number one, is he kind? If he's kind, that's a check mark. Okay? Is he intelligent? Will he understand? Because sometimes they don't understand. And then the person should not be involved or informed about that, right? So you've got to be careful. Is he kind? Is he intelligent? Is he in good health? Mind, body, soul, physically, right? Again, these are things you want to ascertain to know whether this person should be someone you divulge this information to. Is he funny, right? Does he have humor? Does he have a sense of humor? If he does, he might be able to handle this. Then again, he might not, right? Is he physically attractive? Are you physically attractive to him? Does he physically look fit? Does he physically look like he's going to turn you on in the bedroom? Because when you tell him, he's going to be part of the mind experience of your desires. So that physical attractiveness is going to be part of the picture, right, in your mind. So is he physically attractive? If he's not, there might not be a point telling him, right? Does he have empathy? Does he feel? Does he connect with you? That's, for me, is so important. That ability to have that knowledge about what is going on in you, right? And caring and showing it and asking you about things, about what's going on in your life, not just ghosting you. Right? So you want someone that's going to communicate, right? And have emotions and have and show it and not hide it. Okay? I haven't finished. You want someone, and this is for those that are in long-term relationships, that have some genetic quality to them. So yeah, you're thinking about someone, if you're in a long-term relationship, you want a pair bond, you're gonna have kids, genetic quality is important. All right, so how is his genes? You can look at the family, you can look at him, you can ask him about his medical history, you can ask him about his social history, his psychological history, family history in terms of, what's in the family. You can do a genealogy test, right? You can do ancestry.com, you can do any of those things that will give you an idea of what he is made up of genetically. Okay, is there an emotional connection? Same like empathy, right? But is there a connection? Are you connected? Did you find something in common that really made you feel good? Okay, now that feeling good is the start, right? Maybe it goes on, maybe it doesn't. All right, but the last thing that you need to consider is his financial resources, right? Or his resource and investments. What does he have going on financially? Is he stable? Is he working and responsible financially? Because you want to feel, again, safe and secure. These are people that you want to know whether you can trust them with your fantasies. Okay, so I just wanted to throw that in. Try and assess and know, not everyone should know about your fantasies. Okay, just remember that. All right, back to our fantasies. So we're talking about the desires, what makes you get hot in terms of fantasies. And when you do, you divulge them or you don't. So if you are thinking about them, you don't have to divulge them, and it works, and it creates the pathway, right? If you're thinking about them, you get your pathway, you don't have to tell him. But if they don't, you might actually want to do the fantasy with your partner. Yeah, they say, studies show and say, that you are not going to know the impact, the significance of your fantasies unless you actually practically do them. I'll say it again. Your fantasies reflect something in your childhood, something in your past, something in your world that you've lived so far up to today. It reflects some things that you've been through, good or bad, but they've all accumulated to make you have this wild mind that makes you think of things that will turn you on. And it's an oxymoron. You can have it good, bad, it doesn't matter. It's finally surfaced and it comes to you as a fantasy, but it is a reflection of something in the past. Now, could that be why you're not having an orgasm? Because you've not addressed things that have bothered you from the past? And the answer is yes. So these fantasies come to you because they want you to address them. And unless you do, you're never going to know what really was going on in your family to inhibit you having an orgasm right now. Again, this is what the studies show. I want the information, let me know. So I want to say it again in a different way. Look into your fantasies by expressing them with yourself or your partner to find out what will help you grow sexually and grow in terms of knowing who you are. So you're going to learn about yourself more in terms of who you are. Okay, just a word. That's what I'm reading in the literature. So when you do, you are going to be able to find a new you, a better you. Again, with someone that you trust. Okay, so you can either do this on your own, when you're by yourself, satisfying yourself, or you can do this with your partner. And you can do this by talking to your partner and saying, hey babe, I would like us to do one of my fantasies, right? Or two of my fantasies, or three of my fantasies. And again, with someone you trust. And you decide who you do it with and who you don't do it with. Now, I know I'm sounding crazy, but I'm telling you, studies show that it opens a whole new door for you in terms of not only your orgasm, but in terms of your joy and your happiness, all right? I'm gonna say stop at that and just say, think about it, okay? I'm not forcing you to, just think about it. All right, going back to fantasies, I did want to say that there is a fantasy. I'm not gonna say the actual name of the fantasy, but they say 1 out of 2 women think of this fantasy. All right, so somebody out there knows what I'm talking about. It's actually being forcibly taken, okay? Some people think about being forcibly taken and it arouses them, okay? And I tell you again that when you're forcibly taken, it is, again, the sexual mind, not a behavior. It is just your mind creating whatever reason. Remember, going back to your childhood or going up to your upbringing, going up to your environment, going up to your exposures and what's happened to you sexually and non-sexually. It's all a combination of all of that. And you actually have a desire for that, even if it's pretense. Remember, all this is pretense, right? None of this is real. This is all just imagination, and we're allowed to imagine, right? As long as it's private in the bedroom. So being forcibly taken turns some people on. Or watching the person trying to imagine what they're going to do to you if they get you alone somewhere. Again, I'm not going to create the fantasy for you, but there are quite a few fantasies out there, and you can, again, research them if you would like to, especially the book I just told you by Dr. Contula. You have to know what yours is. Again, this might not be yours. I just want to mention that as one of the fantasies and desires that people do have. 1 in 2 women, that's a high ratio. Gosh, is it a bad thing? As long as it's not done, literally, it's just a fantasy, you're good. And remember, you have to follow the rules of fantasies if you decide to engage in them. Okay, so there are rules to that. So I'll talk about that next time. I think there's going to be a part 3. I'm going to go back into part 3 with this because this is really detailed, and I know I'm going on. So real quickly, sexting. Women like that. So men are more graphic and more visual when it comes to things like that. They like things that they can see and they can conclude right there and then. We like a little bit more of a story to what we like. So sexting, going back and forth, is something that we like. But we are big into imagery. We love images. So again, that explains why our mind can do all sorts of stuff, right? Part of the stuff it can do is create images, which is of course memories and pictures and things. So depending on what sort of mind you have, it's okay. Just use that in the bedroom. All those images, bring them forward, stay focused, enhance the feeling of what you're feeling to get that pathway created, okay? So, you want to be able to have that ability to not control what you're feeling. You want to lose control. So that's what I want you to remember. So the more you think, if you want to bring in more than one idea or more than one imagery or more than one aspect of fantasy, go for it. And at the same time, you're being stimulated by your partner, right? All those zones and stuff, right? So it's all a matter of letting loose, losing control, letting go of that prefrontal cortex and just going for it. Just wilding out, right? All right. So your sexting is sometimes something that works for you. People do it during the day. People do it, anytime, night, whenever. I think imagery, pictures, right? Sexting also can be put in there. So those are things between, again, 2 consenting adults, no children involved in this, and it should be very professionally done, not at work. This is when people are on their own time. Please don't do anything that's inappropriate, especially at work. Porn, right? So porn is something I know y'all probably don't want me to talk about because, I really do love talking about porn. But porn is something that is helpful, again, to start the cascade of reactions to get that orgasm going. Some women like it, some women don't. Some men like it, some men don't. While engaging in sexual activity, that's the key. While you're in the bedroom, that is when it should be done. Again, this is what research says. That is when it's most potent and most effective, okay? So I'm just gonna mention that, and I'm gonna continue it in part 3. The last one that I wanna mention is, the words that you use in the bedroom. Spoken word, right? Spoken sexual words. Are they derogatory? Are they nasty? Are they worshipy, right? Again, this is something that you can use in the mind to turn on your pathways, your orgasmic pathways, okay? So I want you to remember that this is just a way of focusing your mind on your creating that orgasm. I know it's sort of brief, but get that book, The Sexual Mind by Dr. Contula, and see what that will do for you. I think it will help for those that are curious. If not, just know that keep on doing what you're doing if you don't want to partake. But for those that want to advance and elevate their sexual experience and get that true orgasm that I'm always talking about, please do know that this is a way of focusing and measuring, making sure that you are in the zone with your partner and doing some things that are a little bit extra that will almost guarantee, if not guarantee, you getting that orgasm, okay? All right, time to go. Thanks for listening. See you for part 3, all right? Have a good night. Bye.